start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will. I have it written down. Yes, I got it written down.
No. It's a little, it's the only fun I have. Got it. No, it's like, hey,
Yeah, it is, yes.
I have a couple vices.
Yes.
You know, to keep me young. So that's it's only illegal if you get Exactly.
Can you start with the roll call, please?
Alberts.
Here.
Cooper.
Here.
Ferguson.
Here.
Flatten. Here. Hawley.
Here.
Janelli.
Here.
Matrina.
Here.
Petrofesta.
Present.
Taversack.
Here.
Tranzilla. Here. We're all here.
We're happy. Before we go into recognitions, there's a recognition I'd like to make. There are two people that watch us every single board meeting, tired to sleep from beginning to end. So I'd like everyone to look at the camera and say hello to Deb Warner and to Ann Mead. Hi, guys. Smile and say hi. Come on. There you
Kind of a
go.
slow Wednesday night. Slow Wednesday night.
They're watching. They watch live. Okay.
Remember when they sent me to my office to get something? When I was Debbie's calling me to tell me where it's at.
Tough flip of the coin, Kenneth. Oh my God.
So they watch every single thing, every single time.
Except tonight.
Yeah, right.
Oh, no, because I told them I'm going to say where everyone's going to acknowledge that they're already watching. 4 people watch us, and 2 of them are employees. It's wonderful. Okay, we have a recognition tonight that's pretty exciting. From Shelter Rock, we have a student, Sal Dandaro, is that correct? Am I pronouncing that? Danbury. Thank you very much. I should have checked before I came up here. Thank you. He's the state winner in the fire prevention poster contest. His teacher is here, Donna. Thank you. Didn't want to make a mistake twice. Gagliardi. And there's also a gentleman in the audience. It's Marshall Jim Russell. I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Russell, if you could just speak for it to us.
There's a mic right here.
Jimmy, I can just say.
Sure you can. Sure. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right with this? Yes, my name is Jim Russell. I'm Fire Marshal here in Danbury. And this year, something's happened to one of our students that has not happened since this program of this fire prevention safety program has begun 31 years ago. So this is really, really special. I'll tell you quickly, just briefly, a little bit about the program. Our fire prevention poster contest, as I said, has been alive for 31 years. I've been administering this program in our office for the last 7 years. And it's been such a pleasure to work with the kids and the principals and the teachers. I really love doing this. So how it works is October 1st, or let me back up a little bit. First of all, it's sponsored by the Connecticut Fair Plan, which is in the insurance industry. It's also sponsored by the state educational system and Connecticut Fire Marshals Association, which I belong to, and the Fire Chiefs Association. So monies mostly from the insurance companies go into this program, and they provide something really special for the kids. And that is, they offer this poster contest. The kids do all the work. The art teachers are fantastic at teaching the kids, and it's designed to teach the kids fire safety. And the theme of this poster contest is, it's right on we have it on the cake here actually, fire prevention, everyone, every day. Let me see this poster here. And this is Vatsal's poster that he did which is the state winner for this year. So how it begins is in September, I get a truckload of materials that I have to deliver to all the schools in Danbury, private and public. It's only meant to be administered to the 4th and 5th graders, and I pass everything out, and then the art teachers, Donna Gagliardi, goes to work. And she's had, by the way, several winners over the past years, but not a state winner like tonight. So I deliver all the materials. The kids have 2 months to produce posters. They have to say fire prevention every day. That's the theme. It has to be on the poster somewhere. And the spelling has to be correct. And the lessons of what we learn from the posters has to stick right out to us. And colors, everything matters. So we give them 2 months, then I go around, I pick up all the posters, and we have a local judging done. It's done in City Hall. I bring in some people from planning and zoning and building, and they love to do this. And a couple of them have art backgrounds, so that works out really well. And it's just a fantastic hour in our day. You know, I don't do any judging, but they do it all. Once the local winner is chosen, there are 2, one from the 4th grade, one from the 5th, and then they go upstate and they are judged by the county. If they become a county winner, they will get on next year's calendar. They will also attend a luncheon in March, which we've already attended. And at that luncheon, there are about 600 people that show up. Jerry Brooks from Channel 30 is the announcer. He makes a great day out of it. They have a magician hired for the kids. It's fantastic. And each county winner will win $150, a check, towards hopefully their schooling in the future. And at the end of the luncheon, one state winner is chosen, and this year it was Vadsel. Congratulations, Vadsel. Great job. In addition to his $150 check, Vadsel also cleans house. He got a check for $750 more. And in addition to that, his school, Shelter Rock School, will receive, and I'm told that they've already received it, a grant for $500 towards furthering education in the school. So it's a win-win for everyone involved. And what do I get out of it? I get total enjoyment. It is so much fun to do this with the kids. I love it. And the principal, Ms. Horn, is always so supportive for this program. Many of our principals are. There are a few that they don't really participate, but we're trying. So maybe we can get a little promotion from you guys this year for next year. And when I started doing the program 7 years ago, I was collecting about 100 posters per year. Last year was the best year. I collected over 500 posters. So they were really into it, and it was working. This year, for whatever reason, and I'm not really sure why, because I've been promoting it as hard as we possibly can all the time. This year we got 169 posters. So I'm not sure what happened, but I hope that next year we will make the numbers rise and get everybody involved. And one thing I have to add is that when the kids start doing these posters, fire prevention, every day, it's meant for the kids to do this, part of it at home and part of it in school. But what it does is it takes the message of fire prevention, whether it be candle issues or cooking issues or whatever it might be. Brothers and sisters and moms and dads all learn from this, and it just seems to work for us. Our fire prevention numbers in Danbury are significantly lower than other towns with a similar size population and similar size fire department. So this is just one key to that factor, but it whatever it is we're doing, it's working. So we please promote this next year, I beg of you. It's a great program for the kids. Thank you so much, and congratulations to Donna Gagliardi, the art teacher who instructed that cell, and also to Ms. Horn for always being supportive in the program. Thank you very much.
Come on the inside.
Go on the inside, shake everybody's hand. Jimmy,
Start right there.
Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations. Good job.
Congratulations.
Bring your poster here.
Yeah, we want to see the poster.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Thank you, Mr. Russell, and thank you for what you do involving everybody.
Congratulations, sir.
What do you know?
I have one other thing to say.
What?
Wait 1 second.
I didn't mention this, and it's so important to know this, is that each year, approximately 30,000 children participate in this. And here's number one, right?
Well, it's amazing how proud we are.
Can you just tell the board how you came up with that
Show your
idea?
poster.
Just give us how'd you come up with that idea?
I put in all the times where I burnt myself by accident into this to show, like, so fire here is supposed to be evil, and it's supposed to say I'm not a toy since you're not supposed to play with fire, which was my mistake at the time.
Excellent.
Great job.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Great job.
Great job.
What are you doing with your money? What are you doing with your money? Tell them. You are?
What are you doing?
Your dad and you are?
Well, we were buying stocks to get more money.
To get more money. That's a good job, Dad. Good teaching.
Come on, honey.
That's good. Don't burn out surprise.
Excuse me.
Which ones? Any advice? Which?
No, he's already done it. He's done Apple and Chesapeake Energy.
All right.
There you go. There you go. Mr. Ginelli, you have a question?
Dr. Sal,
Thank you.
this is such it's a great honor, and two, it's such an important subject that is it possible that a copy of the poster could be made to be hung in every school as a recognition for the work that we do and celebration of the students and quality and the importance of the program.
Can it be done? Yeah. Sure. Good idea.
Go ahead. Mr. Russell, go ahead.
Yes,
If he doesn't want, if he sells me the copyright.
no, what's going to happen is I also neglected to tell you another important part. I'm so sorry, I'm into this so much, but Vatsel's poster will be on next year's calendar. He'll be the front page of the calendar.
Excellent.
And the county winners go on the each month, you know.
Cool.
And but also they print out an actual poster size copy, professionally done, thousands of copies, and every school will bring copies of that.
Can you bring them here and then we'll work with the art people and get it into a
Sure.
frame and get Adele's name up there and.
Yeah, so I'll get everybody copies.
Thanks.
And they came from Shelter Rock School because that will motivate everybody else. Speaking of Shelter Rock School, we have Ms. Horn in the audience because she's here every other month with some celebration that her kids do. Thank you so much, Julie, for everything.
Thank you.
wanted to have a great day. That's me.
Well, no, yes, I agree with you, but, okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, okay, they want to know when you're going to cut the cake.
They should have.
Yeah.
They should not, because you guys have to have a piece, and God forbid you have to sit through this whole meeting to get the piece of cake. I mean, let's be honest. Okay, let the winner get the cake first, okay, and then you guys go get the cake.
Do we need a motion for
No motion.
Bill, did you take a photo of the cake?
Bill, did you take a photo of the cake?
The wrong year. Take a photo of the cake before you cut
I
it?
did, but let me take one with the cover off of it.
Jillian,
Yes.
how is it that the art teachers promote this? I mean, do people know that there's
Well,
a...
we get a letter in mail
Yeah.
about announcing the poster contest, so I know Dawn is very interested in it, so I just stick it in her box, and she does it with the classes, that's it. And, you know, they just get involved. And so.
Go ahead.
No, I don't
I
think.
tell them,
Yeah,
yeah.
they know, yeah.
Well, they're gonna know now, because it's a ride. Okay. And that's a good thing, and I think it'll encourage. It's a strong motivating factor. They all participate, Don? You make it part of the, okay, all right. So again, it's a trickle-down theory. Okay, I'm gonna say no more. Thank you. That's why what are you coming next month with?
We'll see.
Okay, because I know you'll be there. Alrighty, I'm going to continue while everyone's getting their cake. Please go get your cake, everybody. The board.
Healthy boy, come on.
Sal's gonna serve it.
Could we like serious up? Okay, it's supposed to be a board education meeting.
As you just announced.
The board welcomes public participation and asks that speakers please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Speakers may offer objective comments of school operations and programs that concern them. The board will not permit any expression of personal complaints or defamatory comments about Board of Education personnel and/or students, or against any person connected with the Danbury Public School System. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Anyone in rows 2, 3, 4, 5? Nobody wants to speak. Forever hold your peace. Okay. All right, seeing none, we're going to move ahead to the consent calendar. Kathy, go.
That the Board of Education approves the items on the consent calendar, exhibits 15 through 69 through 15 through 72 as recommended.
Seconded by Mrs. Cooper. Okay, before we vote on it, I would like everyone to pay attention to the retirements. We're losing some big people. By years, I'm talking. Mr. Hines for 25 years, thank you, sir. Adele Mikla, 21 years, thank you, ma'am. And Ms. Alvarez for 22 years, thank you. And then we're losing a friend of mine, Cindy Nietzsche, who for 40 years has led our department. And I want to thank her out loud publicly for what she's done. She'll be missed, but I know she won't be far, so. Okay. Mrs. Cooper wants to say something.
I just want to
Oh,
tell
no, I'm sorry, no.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Cindy Najum. Just again thanking her for the years that she has put into the Danbury High School productions, which have been, if you've ever attended them, they are just amazing. And it's such a shame because she has got such talent and the kids have benefited from her in such a way that, you know, I don't have kids in the high school yet, mine are coming, and I'm just so sad to know that she won't be there for, you know, to put us some kind of amazing visitor.
Okay, and in defense of that, Cindy has made sure that everything is properly.
Oh, I know she has,
And the
she's
gentleman that's
just
replacing
amazing.
her, or not replacing her, because nobody can replace her. Okay, the next person to step up to the
I know,
plate
but I just
has her.
The board did buy her 2 dozen roses.
Well, she
Presented.
deserves it, she's just
There you go.
amazing.
Well, and she has been all
And the
along.
community just loves her.
Yes,
They
we all
do,
do.
they really do.
That's why I cheered
About
up.
6,
when I
7.
said she was
Yeah.
Next up the agenda, I'd also like to welcome all of our new members that are listed. And the other piece is, if you'll check out the donations, there was a 2,000, if I could just speak, I mean, all the microphones in the world, I can't speak. I'd like everyone to acknowledge that IBM Community Grant has been awarded to Morris Street School. And it was to recognize the volunteer efforts of an employee, Mr. Charles Schott, who has worked, volunteered at Morris Street for the last 4 years, and since he retired. Thank you, Mr. Schott, and thank you, of course, to IBM. All right, there's no other discussion. All in favor? Opposed? It passes. Thank you. Is there an employee representative in the audience? Oh, none. Okay. Next, student representatives. I see there's none of them either, okay? Go ahead. Nobody else to speak. Okay, we're gonna go right into, invite Megan up.
And Kara?
And Kara, I'm sorry, I didn't see Kara. Kara, I did not see you. I'm terribly sorry.
The state participates in a study for the past, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years. The follow-up studies that we didn't have to pay for, which is great. And there's some interesting information that would be nice to share with you.
Good evening, everyone.
I don't think that's on.
It's not on
It's
me.
not working.
No.
There you go.
Thanks very much for letting me share a little bit of good news from the high school, although I'd like to recognize that certainly the performance of our students on the SAT and these larger ticket items, including how well our students perform in college and beyond, is certainly not just the success of the high school and the faculty at Danbury High, that this is really something to celebrate from all of our faculty, K through 12, who all have a part in ensuring the success of our students once they graduate. So you should have a bullet sheet. I have all kinds of graphs if anybody would like to see everything that's underneath this. I thought you might prefer sort of the highlights, but again, I can share the rest of the information if you're interested. For the SAT, we take a look at how we perform year over year, but we also like to see how we're performing against districts that look like us and feel like us. And so the State Department of Education utilizes demographic reference groups, DERGs, to provide us with some context for comparisons across similar schools. And so our DERG is H, and on the back side of that handout is a listing of the towns in the DERGs, so that way you have a sense of who we're comparing with. And so I'm very pleased to say that Danbury High School outscored every school in our demographic group with the exception of West Hill and Stanford on the SAT in all areas. We also, when we look at how we performed on average compared to our DERG, if we exclude West Hill, who we are now seriously looking to contend with, that we are scoring an average significantly higher than our companion sister schools in DERG, H. So 26 points higher in reading, 30 points higher in math, and 24 points higher in writing, again, than any other school in West Hill. So we were so heartened by that, we thought we would check out how we were doing with some of our more affluent neighbors and learned that we had outscored 2/3 of the DERG that's above us in math and writing, and 1/2 of those schools in reading. And we saw similar patterns when we went up to DERG F. And so that is something that we are tremendously proud of, the work of our students. So getting them to perform on the SAT and then ensuring that they're ready to be successful in college and stay in college are related, but we want to take a look at how they're performing. And so we were able to call out some highlights regarding the graduating cohort of 2010 and saw that the state average for students going to college within 16 months of graduating from high school is 77%, and Danbury High School is at 76%. So we were right below the state average in the percentage of students who are attending college. Again, outscoring almost all the districts in our DERG. The other two pieces, I think, are something we're particularly proud of. The fact that 66% of our kids remained in college and they had earned 24 credits within the first 2 years of enrollment is something to be extremely proud of. The state average is 52%. And so our kids have enough resiliency to remain in college and to stick with it. We are also continuing to work on the percentage of students who require remediation. We have some relationships with WestCon where we administer assessments prior to students applying to college to get a sense of where they are to ensure that we can provide some supports for them. We have some small grants where we have relationships with WestCon where they're attempting to intervene with some of these kids as well. And so our state average of remediation rate for students who attend the state university system is below the state average. And so these are just some happy pieces of news. You know, it's hard to come across longitudinal data after we've seen so many changes happen, but this is certainly very heartening. And Kara has some information about our graduation rate.
Sure. Just quickly, what Meg just went over gives context to the larger study that you all received earlier to the meeting, and that's the National Student Clearinghouse study that the state does that Sal was referencing before. So that gives it a lot of good context as it relates to other districts. but you can see in depth how our own district performs within the study. I had previously reported on graduation rates in the year, and we were waiting for them to be finalized, and y'all asked I come back when they were. And so now we've received our 4-year cohorted graduation rates. I kind of had just the regular data that you received earlier, and I made it pretty, so it's just more comparable at this point. The front page really looks at how students did for their 4-year cohort graduation rates. What we did was put 2013 next to 2014 for district, and then the third green bar is 2014 for Danbury High School's graduation rate. We're very proud to report that although our district has been increasing, for 2013 we were at 75.5% overall. Our 4-year district graduation rate for 2014 was 78.1, and if we're only looking at Danbury High School graduates taking out of the equation the ACE students, we are at 82.4. So we're seeing some great gains, particularly in subgroups of students who report Hispanic as their ethnicity, and the two or more races, that's a really volatile number there because it's such a small group. So you see a tremendous leap. But eligible for free and reduced lunch, we went from 59.4, or just free lunch, 59.4 to 67.0. So looking at closing the achievement gap for socioeconomics was a great gain between the 2 years. So that's the first page. If you have any clarifying questions, you can see, the subgroups all broken. Yes.
What is the definition of the district versus Danbury High School? What makes that a base?
So the district is Danbury High School, all graduating folks that started with us in 9th grade and graduated in 12th grade within 4 years. So it's cohorted. So some students graduated from ACE.
You got ACE.
So when you take out that high school and look just at Danbury High School, the second to last page has the number count, so you can look specifically at how many students. The second page is who is still enrolled after 4 years. So although we graduated for the district 78.1%, what's going on with those other students that were in the cohort? And what we saw was that in 2013, 13% of the students were still enrolled. 2014, only 10%, and at Danbury High School, 8.2. So we'll see with the further numbers under other, which they consider the dropout rate. We saw that students were actually graduating in less time than the previous year. Because when you flip to the next page for students in the other category, and I defined it specifically with the state definitions at the end, we are about the same at 11.6, 11.0. And Danbury High School is at 9.4. So those are the students who either dropped out, said they were transferring to another district, and never enrolled in that other district, and then or has a status of unknown.
And we're having conversations with the state to no avail. We have a number of our kids will go to adult ed. That's counted as a dropout.
Correct.
Even though so that we know they're in school, but the state, from their perspective, they remove them from the normal day. They count them as a dropout. And if someone goes to a school and they don't ask for the transcripts, the burden is on our district to seek them out. If not, they're counted as a dropout as well.
Okay. So, and Meg, giving context to these numbers, also pointed out that there were higher and more rigorous graduation requirements in 2014, and our graduation rate did go up despite that. So those are, I just wanted to make sure that you actually had the numbers also, so those pieces of who's in those categories and how many students, and then just some notes in case you have questions about context after. Yes?
So I'm just referring to that first page.
Yes.
When you have the 2013-14 district, and then the 2013-14
Correct.
district graduation rate, which is the blue.
Mhm.
2014, I'm assuming.
So it's
15.
12, 13, and then 13, 14, yeah, at 13, 14.
And do we have any data on the 2013 DHS graduation rate?
We do not. That's the first year they've broken that down and reported it. This is done by the state, and they do the equation for the cohorts and all of the tracking of those students, because they're able to see, you know, who goes and leaves and goes into other districts. So they count the measurement of when a student entered our district to when they qualify them for graduation.
So for our purposes in looking at this, what's the data that you think is, because to me right now, the green line doesn't mean anything because I have nothing to compare it to.
That's true.
So I'm not looking at, I'm not excited about a 75.5 to an 82.4, to be quite honest, because it's
Right, no,
apples
it's
and
not
oranges right now.
comparable. Yeah,
But what I'm looking at is your blue to red.
correct.
And so what is the, I guess, what information is driving us? Is it the blue to red? Because I'm seeing a decrease in some
Sure.
of those
Yeah.
ethnic groups.
Mhm.
And so I guess my question is, where are we going with this information? Because until we get another data point for the DHS graduation rate, I'm saying we only need to be looking at those other two.
That's right, but this was the first time the state reported, so I
Right.
thought that it was information that you all should have.
Right.
The
Thank
piece,
you.
yeah, the piece that comes is definitely, as you said, comparing apples to apples. What we're trying to look at when we're looking at really the other category, which becomes who are our dropouts in the district, is where the real investigation of the data is important. Why are kids leaving? Who is actually leaving, and why are they not graduating or staying enrolled in our school? So Meg has asked that we do an investigative study of those students, and that's what we've been doing, looking at what's the ethnicity, the lunch status, the attendance, and all of those pieces, kind of doing a profile of those students to see, you know, because we know these kids graduated, but we want to know why the others didn't, more than anything.
And so some of the pieces that we're looking at in real time are, you know, pass rates and attendance. And so we have an SRBI system or an RTI system where we're intervening with students when we identify that they're struggling academically. And so we've been able to make really significant gains in the last 2 years with our repeat ninth graders, who we can see that those students, they fit what we suspect to be a profile of students who don't graduate based upon national research. So if you don't make it through ninth grade on time, your likelihood of dropping out significantly increases. And so that's why we've spent the last few years really trying to shore up our practices in the freshman academy to make sure that we're personalizing learning for students, that we're making connections with kids, and we've built on some of those programs as we measure the success. And so our Dean of Student Supports worked with our ninth grade repeaters. That was so successful, you know, we look to do it in other places. And so we try and try little things and then expand them. Currently, and I believe Dan Donovan came and spoke to you about the Twilight program that we're taking a look at, helping kids recapture those credits before they leave ninth grade. We've just conducted our first pass at creating a master schedule to take a look at what classes students need. And we have so few of our ninth graders who are requiring to take the same core classes over that we don't have enough of those students to be able to team them, which is a really, really good indicator. And so while, you know, we're a little stymied in terms of the available data sets for us going backwards, we try and take a look at it both ends. You know, where are they ending up? So we've done some things where we've connected with students to say, can we call on you in 4 years to inquire about how we prepared you for school and what can we be doing differently, in conjunction with conducting focus groups with some of the population now. So, you know, I go into ISS, what are you doing? You know, those kinds of things. And that information really feeds, I think, a lot of the strategies. And because we're pretty good about collecting data to see if it's working, we're able to sort of weed the garden when we need to.
If we had just raw data for specific years as to the total population, number of students in the senior year is X, and then the number of graduates that we had. Would that be, the number wouldn't tell you any reasons because of all of the ins and outs or whatever the problems are, but at least it would give you, give us some sort of an idea as to whether it's increasing or decreasing, not understanding, and that's another problem as to the complexity, if there were increases or decreases. Is that data available? I mean, do we internally have information such as that?
So we have internally, like, if a student, we can do anything that, you know, we want to with what's available. So we looked at last year and the year before, I believe, you know, who started as a senior and ended as a senior, who started as a junior and then graduated the following year. Like those pieces, the cohorted piece of really who sat with you the first day of school, because of the movement in Danbury High School and how that's tracked, it's difficult to do the cohorted piece the way the state does. We can do it in a more simple way.
But a more simple way, but like I said, if you just took
Sure, your number's a lot higher.
And that to perhaps see where we are or dispel somebody from saying, gee, I'd like to move into Danbury, but I understand that they have a poor graduation rate or percentage and stuff like that. You know, numbers are always, you can tell the story that you're always discussing. But it would give us some indication, and Dan Rose's point, you know, some sort of a trend line, say, you know, this is what we're doing, understanding that there's complexities. It's almost the same thing as if you look at the CMT scores ahead of that. You know, you're looking at a snapshot, and it's so convoluted that you can't make an assessment on it. But I think in this case here, it can be used for whatever reason. It might be interesting to see.
Anybody else have any other questions, please? Seeing none, ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Action items?
That the Danbury Board of Education authorize the superintendent of schools to accept the educational specifications and complete grant application ED 049 for state approval for the addition and alterations at Danbury High School in
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
For the board's information, I did contact the architect about the front entrance.
Yeah.
Good.
I did lodge that.
And they're changing it and making it more attractive to us. Yes, please.
Well, what he assured me was that that's just a concept. And I said, well, here's our, he got that real clear. So let's see if he comes back.
So he's changing it.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
All righty. All in favor, it's passed, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Moving right into that superintendent's report. So,
I think you have the testimony there. I did make it up to Hartford, and which turned out well. I was one of the last ones there, which it took me in about 15 minutes. I submitted the testimony early because I was not sure if I was going to get on. And when I arrived, they had listened to similar testimony all day long. And right before I went, they had a testimony on the actual formula, where they're looking at disparity. So when I went up, they were about ready to go for Passover and Easter. But actually, I caught their interest a little bit, and we stayed an extra 20 minutes and talked about the problems of the cities, the problem of sustainability. Some of them actually pointed and said, wouldn't it be the best thing in the world to do away with arbitration? In terms of how it may impact attracting teachers and attracting administrators and create, a nucleus of folks that stay. It might not be the best thing for a city, although I understand where he was going with it. We talked about the differences among the towns. I tried to make the point that a school district or a student shouldn't be any wealthier or poorer than the state as a whole. that in fact they had an obligation to provide a quality access education to the urbans as well as the suburbans. And that even though they were talking about, you know, taking money from the left pocket to the right pocket, I just told them to get a kangaroo outfit, Captain Kangaroo outfit, because there is a lot more money in the state that they can distribute if they choose to distribute it. People have messed around with the formula, and the gentleman before me had indicated it has frozen, even though they put in free and reduced lunch. They put ELL students in there in 2007, but they froze it, did nothing with it. And we've lost, I saw some slide last night that said Danbury has lost about $38 million. We lose about $3 million a year. The state's supposed to give you 50% contribution. They're giving us 46%. It's been down to 42%. So, you know, I think overall, I made some noise. I think if you make some noise, send something to them. You need to just advocate for our kids. And they have a hard job, but they're elected officials. And I've asked them not to rely on the courts to make them do the right thing. That's the CJ. So that's what I spent my time doing. City Council budget presentation last night. The mayor did present his budget. I think there's a 0.8 overall tax levy that's needed to implement the mayor's budget. We'll be meeting with a subcommittee. I think Mr. Levy is the chairman of that committee. I'm not certain as to the date as of yet.
I'm setting up the equipment.
Setting up the time for us, okay, for us to go and talk to them. The allocation was $2.2 million, the appropriation, I should say, the recommendation. In conversation with the mayor for the past week and a half, 2 weeks, we've talked about the need for the excess cost. That's the impact money that the state returns back to the town, to students who have moved into Danbury, and we've had to pay 4.5 times our tuition, and then we get reimbursed for that. I've asked for some access to that money, and he's agreed over 2.2 that we'd have some money to draw down on, which will help us tremendously. So we're working out those details. So we have the 2.2 million, and the access to, I'm saying up to maybe $400,000 of excess cost that is attributed to students that we've had to place out after we established our budget last year. So that's what we're working on. You know, I don't have to give you the numbers, but for us alone, it was about $2.2 million in raises. As of today, we've looked at our numbers for the benefits. It's moved considerably down from where we used to be, but it's right about $600,000 or 3%, you know, $210,000 per 1%. So we have that. You're opening up 7th grade over at Westside. That's $700,000. You can start adding that up. We just, you know, so we got to make it work. We're trying to keep teachers in classrooms. That's a priority for us. We're trying to look at the relevancy for the different programs that we have. And we're going to have to make choices because if you can see where the money needs to come from. If it's benefits and salaries, then we're going to recoup that as benefits and salaries. So we're looking to shift some of the obligations into the Alliance grant, and that will help us somewhat. The money for the excess cost money, up to $400,000, will help us somewhat, but we still have quite a bit of work to do to try to pare this thing down so we can meet the budget, if in fact that's the final budget that we have approved. Remember, it's in hearing. The chances of it going up, I'm not buying any tickets on that. So we're beginning to figure out what does it mean for us if we move forward. I know Mr. Ginelli and you guys have been talking about having a committee. We've been working on some ideas and some concepts as we've been hearing about the budget rules. Joe's not here tonight, but that's anybody else that was there last night can talk about. The mayor also unveiled 11-point, was that 11 points? Is that what he called it? The 11-point game plan?
Game plan, he calls it
Game plan?
that. No, there's a name for it.
And I'll work with the end in mind.
It was in the paper.
With the end in mind. The end in mind was play number 11, talked about combined services. You know, those combined services 5 years out may look at how our departments can work together. He was concerned about the sustainability and tax base to have increased obligations relative to students moving in can the town sustain it? And right now, they're looking at hiring a project manager. Apparently, that project manager will look at all the projects that come in to make sure that it's bid right and there's all of the X's and O's have been taken care of, and that we don't have too much on the plate for the city. You were more involved in that than I have.
Yeah, in the beginning, but that's basically the summary of the way I understand the master plan was.
Yeah, and it might be with there, right? So we'll see how that rolls out, and we'll start work on the budget. Bill, anything on the budget that you want to?
Not on the budget, but when we get to the ECS grant conversation, I think that's where you actually see how this thing's going to play out for us.
Okay. The last thing, which is important, I'll let you speak a little bit about the high school. As you know, Gary has indicated he will be retiring a year from next September. So that means we have to put some things into play.
So I think I've talked at prior meetings, there are actually several other area high schools that have principal vacancies, either for next year or anticipated in the near future. So we're going to have a little bit of competition to draw some candidates to the pool. So Dr. Sal and I are working on the timeline now for hiring, which is going to look something like this. We'll spend the end of the spring and certainly over the summer advertising and trying to get out and really publicize the fact that we're going to have a posting up for the position. And we'll talk a little bit at that time about the cost of how far afield we cast our net, what kind of publicity we'll do. But the goal is to get pretty broad coverage for candidates for that position in the spring, summer, going into the fall. We'd like to start interviewing according to the board policy with the two panels and with the School Governance Council shortly after we do some focus groups. So we'll try to gather perhaps some board members, some parents early in the fall to talk about what people are looking for, what they think the high school needs, really trying to get a good consensus about what that candidate should look like, and then we'll roll into the interviews probably in the November timeframe. The goal would be to have someone offered and accepted into the position by the end of the calendar year, and we could budget them in for a half year for next year, so they would come on in January and have some time to transition with Gary through the end of the spring and be on board full-time on July 1. So it's kind of a multi-step, some advertising, some real focus group talks with people that are really involved in the high school, and then kind of recruiting and trying to get some good quality candidates in for the interviews.
It gives us about a year and a half. In terms of the budget, there isn't any way I can, start in January. My hope is if I can have someone by, the last quarter, depending on who we select to, right? So, but, I think the dream to have someone come in early is just not going to work. So we're going to have to look at it that way. We potentially, I've mentioned to the board, there could be two other secondary folks as well that I'm going to have to be concerned about, but right now I don't have that confirmation. All I know for certain is that Gary will be going. I'm going to throw out the idea about when we put this out, that we may even put other administrative positions, as long as we're paying for the big time ad, to start collecting names for ourselves, and just with their input. A year and a half is pretty good to start looking for someone. So that's sort of the plan that we have to do. ECS, and then again, the policy is pretty explicit about the board's participation, the groups, and all that. We'll follow all of that, of course. ECS.
I'm sorry, just a quick question. I know we have a lot of time to think about this, about the focus groups that you'll gather. I'm just curious, is there any outlet for teachers and parents to share their opinions freely without it going to without just hearing from a focus group?
Sure. I mean, we could do some kind of a survey. I mean, there's lots of different things we could do to try to gather information without putting people on the spot having to speak in a group. Is that what you mean?
No, I just know how focus groups go, and I know that sometimes some people get on them and it becomes their agenda and truly not representative of what people are really thinking and saying. And so I would just personally feel that, if there was some way for the community, teachers, to be able to share, because I don't always believe that some people in focus groups are really actually.
Well, the other thing The other thing too, I'll say to that is, the school governance council is a really good resource for us because the people who serve on that are teachers and students and parents, and so that may also be a place where we can kind of springboard out, and those folks will be involved in an advisory role in the interview process. So I think we'd probably try to use different people for all these. I mean, my goal would be to try to talk to as many people as possible to try to hone in on what it is we're looking for. But I would agree with you. It would be nice to have a broadly cast net of opinions.
Yeah, and maybe the focus groups, can take those opinions and narrow them down and summarize them.
Right.
Okay, just curious.
Anyone else have any discussion, questions? Richard?
Do we do anything to encourage our local staff to participate or to encourage them to apply for something like this?
We do, and you've heard me say over the last couple of years that we've actually really tried hard to expand how we look at the interview process, and we've encouraged internal candidates to come and interview. Just the fact of interviewing has been very valuable to them. We've seen a lot of growth in a lot of people that have come in, and so the answer to that is yes, and I think that as Dr. Sal's alluding to, we're anticipating certainly in the next couple of years that we're going to have a good number of secondary openings. So this is part of that strategy of interviewing with big eyes and trying to see as many people as we can to start a pipeline so that we can continue to be in touch with them as the next couple of years go by.
Anybody else? No? All righty, ECS, moving along.
Bill?
This is going to be particularly challenging for us, and it's serendipitous that Megan encouraged us to the presentation on the good news with graduation rate, because as we look at the Alliance District grant, Sal's passing around now a draft of our grant applications due April 24th. You will see on the top of the matrix, there's an initiative and there's an associated cost. The grant is approximately $6.7 million. Next year it's the same, 6.7. It started 1.7 and 2.2 added on top of that, and another 2.2. So we're now up to 6.7 and holding. And that should hold next year and the year after, and at the end of the 5 years. At the end of the 5 years, then it's a totally different ballgame. So on one hand, we have the challenge of trying to offload money from the Alliance District grant, ECS grant, into the general fund, because if the grant goes away, then everything goes away with it. And at the same time, as the budget shrinks here and the Alliance District grant remains static, if you notice that first line that says implement full-day kindergarten program, that was a priority of the board. We now have universal full-day kindergarten, which is wonderful. Parents in particular loving it. Every one of those teachers in those full-day kindergarten classes go up when the contractual raises go up. The grant doesn't go up in a commensurate manner. So we get what we call the compression factor, and eventually the cost of the fixed cost of the grant go through the ceiling of the grant, and that difference, that delta, then is sent back to the general fund, to our operating budget. So as you look at some of the costs, we're spending almost $2 million a year on that full-day kindergarten program. We had worked through a process to try and shift that back in a ladder formation, climbing a step or two at a time, to the general fund. If the general fund increases don't keep parity with the escalating costs, and we can't find a way to cut something else out, then we have a challenge. As Sal said earlier, the board, and we certainly support this, made, in our opinion, a very wise decision. At all costs, keep teachers in front of children. When all is said and done, the most important thing in the school system really deals with the kids and the teachers, and that's about it. Everything else is a support to them. In order to do that, the more veteran board members may remember we took and we cut central office administrators by 50%. There are 50% less administrators now than there were before. We, up to and including, we cut an assistant superintendent. So it was very severe in terms of the cuts that we made. And we've never backfilled those. An associated challenge with that, those members of the team, the board members who have served on the teacher evaluation task force, know that we're really struggling for the remaining administrators to meet their evaluation responsibilities because there are not enough of them to go around to do this, especially as the district increases in student population. We add more teachers, we don't add more administrators, so the number of direct evaluations gets even higher. Parallel to this, a corollary to this, we have pushed the teacher evaluation timeline forward this year 3 times. And it comes under my umbrella, and the administrators have come, the teachers have come, the unions have come, and said we just can't meet these timelines. Although that was a team that put them together because they made sense in the abstract. We've moved it forward, and we're just finishing up, and this is April, and we mean that in a smart alecky way, we're just finishing up our mid-year conferences because we pushed it out so far. So what I've said to the administrative team, we don't want to be really nice and helpful on one hand and then slap you in the face on the other, because we pushed the mid-years out to April, and then lo and behold, 8 weeks later, it's June, and the finals are due. So you only have 2 months to do all the work that you did before that. So it's a real challenge. I don't want to waste your time walking you through all these things. You can certainly read, and smart people and understand exactly the associated costs. We'd be more than happy to unpack these if there's a question. I want to call your attention to the bottom of the page, and you notice that this is a draft right now. It's a very preliminary draft. It was done in the absence of last night's meeting. This was just at the cabinet level, sitting in Sal's office, kind of working our way through. If you think of what Megan said about how we've achieved this significant increase, statistically, it's a dramatic increase. And when you outperform your district reference group, you go to the next group higher. It really says something about the work that's being done. However, what we're thinking about right now is, and we've used the word reduce, it really is eliminating the climate specialists at the secondary level. These are the folks that take care of low-level disciplinary issues and free up the administrators to get into classroom lessons and to do their teacher evaluation responsibilities. Eliminate one of the 2 deans. These are the people that do outreach to the families. These are the people that work with the most challenging kids to try and get them back on track. The 9Rs, the repeaters, Megan's point, if they don't make it through successfully on time in 9th grade, significantly increases not only the possibility, but the probability that kids will be dropouts. Reduced 14 interventions district-wide. These are the people that we put into the Alliance District grant to serve as small group or individual student support tutors, basically. So they'll work with 1 child at a time, 2, 3, 4, 5 children at a time. They're working constantly. We have them in place and they have a full caseload. But when it comes to the point of view, we have no more administrators to cut. We can't cut any more teachers. We can't raise class sizes beyond 30 in a class. Our number used to be between 18 and 20 for kindergarten. It's now 22. We have 23 and 24 kindergarten kids in a class. Our number was always 25. Ms. Horn was here earlier. We're up to 27, 28 in 5th grade over there. All of the 5th grade classes. And we're looking at staffing right now. Kim, Sal, Joe, and I, Deb, are looking at the need, for example, at Park Avenue to add more teachers next year. So that's not a place where we can cut, and we can't go any higher in a classroom, in some cases just because there's no room to fit the desks. And then talking about reducing $100,000 from Head Start, and we recognize there are folks kind of on both sides of the table with this. One argument is that these are the services that are provided to our pre-K kids to help get them ready for kindergarten. So but they're not our kids yet, but they will be. So some folks are thinking, well, it's not really a cut to us, it's a cut to the pre-K program. The other argument is, well, if we cut the pre-K kids this year, next year there are kindergarten kids, so we've actually hurt ourselves with that. This is very much a work in progress. With the cuts that you see here, or the reductions that you see here, there's a huge gap that we have not been able to close. And we've just about removed everything that we possibly can, but we'll have to continue because, as you know, it's illegal for the board to adopt a budget that's not balanced. So, final 2 cents, and at this point, I'm only speaking for myself, the really difficult part as a seasoned educator whose primary responsibility is instruction is all the efforts that we put into place to close the achievement gap and to increase student achievement. And the fact that the Common Core and SBAC is more daunting than anything we've ever seen. Everything we put into place we're now pulling out just to close that gap, which means our performance, my prediction, our performance will decline, and it could decline substantially. This is not doom and gloom or fear. This is just everything we put in to support improve student achievement and teacher performance, we're now pulling out because we really have no other option. We've cut everything else that we possibly could. Working with the bus company, working with the insurance companies, every single rabbit that we can pull out of a hat has been pulled out of that hat. So, final 2 cents from the board's perspective, we see that this is going to be a very challenging time for the board as well as for the cabinet, central office, and as we're meeting with our administrators over the next few weeks, we'll be sharing this with them, and they're not going to be happy campers, so you'll probably more than likely hear hue and cry across the district because, as I said, everything we put into place to help, we're now pulling out.
The other thing is, before you move on, there are some things on here. This is for your information. Okay, this has not been shared. That's why I handed it out to you. This is a draft, and okay, so I just want to make that point before I start making things public.
Dr. Glass, is it possible to identify the dollars in addition to the only one you have here is the Head Start number? Can you put the dollars? Sorry.
I just asked, I think...
What I'm saying is, on your eliminations or reductions, is it possible to quantify them with a dollar value?
Sure.
Secondly, is it an assumption that everything that's been reduced is completely out, or part of it or none of it is gone back into the operating budget?
This is so early in the process. So the first answer is yes, we can certainly quantify it right to the penny. And before we would put this in front of you seriously, we would certainly do that and give you the full picture of what we're talking about. Second thing is that this is very, very much a work in progress. And as tomorrow morning we're meeting with our secondary administrators, secondary principals, and central office folks, and we'll be talking about some of these suggestions and saying, what do you think? And already, Sal and I were at the high school the other day, yesterday, I think it was, and yes, it was, because Megan was talking about course loads and things like that, and other ways of consolidating, and we do overages and all that. So we're very early on in the exploratory stage, but this will rapidly pick up over the next couple of weeks and certainly within a month and a half.
The reason why it's on here, quite frankly, we need to get this in the queue of the state. That's why it says draft, and I was not comfortable sending something up there without it going to your desk, okay? So, no. But remember, 51% of this ECS, of the 6.69667, has to be spent on achievement gap. So we've been looking at that ratio, you know, $600,000, critical mass. Now, so that puts how much we have to play. If we're going to move some things around the board, then we have to be mindful that only 49% can go towards the operation piece. So that's why it's in, so you can do the numbers. You can see what
I like Dr. Glass's word of challenge. I think that's a polite, polite word, but the unknown factor is 2 years from now, we don't know anything definitively about the ECS, whether we're going to maintain 100% of it or how it's going to go. So that's still an unknown factor. What we've been told today is we know our appropriation for this year, and Sal also mentioned about some of the increases that we have in addition to the middle school, and then also to an anticipated cost of what the new addition on the high school might be for us. So, as I said, the word challenge is a very polite word for one hell of a job that we got ahead of us to sustain an education system. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Ann.
Thank you for providing, because I had the same question, how much each of those categories that are being reduced, by how much? So I'm just gonna throw something out. Let's say the reduction that you have listed here is a total of $600,000. Where did that $600,000 go? Where is it in here?
And great question. When we really feel that we have some degree of traction on the least onerous cuts that we can make, we will bring it to the board with a dollar amount associated to that. We'll show you on the right where it says cost, we'll show the actual net reduction in that. And then we'll explain what we believe will be the negative impact caused by that. So again, right now, it's really, as we sit with our principals, we just sat with a team of central office administrators today and principals and teachers talking about how can we reduce the amount of testing in Danbury. It's just too much for us. And so as we talked, we spent a good part of the day working through, and we were here at one point, suddenly our thinking shifted here, then went over to here, and at the end of the session, we finally agreed this is a good plan. So there's just so much work right now in Rose to do that by the way, the April 24th deadline that I mentioned is for our initial application to go in. And the state will look at it, and you've heard us use that term iterative that they use, so it's the first iteration, they'll look at it, they'll come down here, they'll meet with us, they'll have us come up there, and we keep pushing it back and forth. The challenge, as Sal said, that this grant was put together to close achievement gaps. And if you don't spend at least 51% on this, they won't award the money to us. Which means only 49% of that dollar amount can actually be used to do the things that are not gap closing related. And so as we push this back and forth, this is probably the hardest work we've ever done in Danbury, because we were so close to making it. And now as we just get ready to go over that hurdle, now we're starting to erode the foundation of the work that we've done, and it's challenging.
It's a hard question to answer, but
I just
it's
wanna
going
know
to
where
raises. It's going to raises.
That's what I want to know.
It's going to
Where's it
raises, the
going?
compression factor that Bill mentioned.
Okay, that's what
And then the rest of it is the picking numbers and how it can be the least evasive into our efforts to achieve the reduction of the gap. That's the kind of work that we got to do. You know,
There have been zero increases for years, many years in a row. We were talking with Ken today about it. There has been a reduction. We were trying to have fewer buses instead of more.
Okay.
And so those are the rabbits pulling out of the hats.
All righty. Richard.
Oh, boy. Very first one, implement. Why use that term? It's saying implement full day kindergarten. Isn't it maintaining? I mean, aren't we? We're currently rolled out throughout. I mean, won't the state pick that up? That we're basically asking to double dip against the CCS grant.
If I can, the language that you see here is language that came from the original grant.
Okay.
The state's saying, what's your initiative? Our initiative is to implement full day K.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right. That now it becomes maintained.
Okay. All right. I mean, so math specialists in elementary schools, what kind of numbers against 700 grand?
Well,
are we looking at one per school?
That was the initial intent, provide full-time math specialists in every one of the 13 schools.
Okay.
We currently have 10, so we're not moving that full. That's an example of it won't save money, but it won't cost us more money. So we've frozen that initiative at this point in time.
So it's currently operational, those 10, and we're trying to slide it into the ECS with making it 13.
That was the original vision, but we're not going to do that right now.
All right.
It's operational at 10.
Department heads in secondary schools.
That's frozen.
Okay. Assistant principal and associate principal, 477. I mean, this is 2 positions. I mean, I'm not sure how that's going to fly.
Let me put this in perspective. We utilized the 6.6 in a way that made it possible to have it funded by making the argument with the state that these eyes are being placed on teachers for the observation cycles, that's a priority for the state in teacher eval. We can certainly take that and put it in the operational budget, if you understand what I'm saying. By doing that, that creates the burden on the other side. So when we looked at this 6.6, last year we got our allocations, okay, 600 kids at the park. Can Dave do all the evaluation? Does he need help? Yes.
No, that's not what he's
I guess my point is that I'm playing devil's advocate. If I'm the state and you're putting a plan together showing $477,000 for 2 people,
right?
That goes up a
Divide that into two.
I think this is a typo.
Yeah,
That money went in.
That's like over 200,000.
That means the assistant principal is
Exactly.
making more than the
Some people are gonna
superintendent.
have
Right, exactly.
That number was transposed, so it's not here.
Wait, should we upset that?
That's just my thought. Again, just play devil's advocate that, you know, like, wow, that's a red flag.
A lot of people applying for those positions.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, exactly.
Let me check with Joe. I think someone in the office actually
It's
down.
not there, he's not here, so.
Okay. Provide an additional grant, so is that an additional grant writer, or is that to maintain our existing one?
This is, there's only one, it's to maintain.
Okay. Okay.
There was a conversation last night about the grant writer, one grant writer for the city as well as.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's all I got. Sorry.
That's it, Rich? Anybody else?
That's a big one.
That was, all right, anybody else? Again, okay. Thank you very much.
Well, actually, one last. So there's really no increase.
There's a decrease.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. There's a pressure. There's
There's a
actually.
decrease.
Okay.
Again, this was language that
Yep.
we lifted from the original grant so that we could show the board
Yep.
what the intent of the grant was.
Right. And thank you, it's like so much fun. Thanks so very much.
No, I will tell you, if we didn't have the 6.6, think about that. So, and I'll go on record and I'll say this, we have not had to battle for the 6.6. There are districts that have been battling with their municipalities and turning this money over to them. We haven't had that battle. So, so we got this, that's a good thing, we had to work. So it is helpful, but
He's running again, you know that.
we're gonna have to go sideways here and go
Just
forward.
is kind of hard. You mentioned something, and I just want to bring it up one more time to drive it home. I'm sorry about this. You mentioned your speech is, everybody has a copy of the speech.
You mean the testimony?
Your testimony, I'm sorry. Testimony, not a speech. So if we could all pull something from it, a couple of things from it, to help form our letters that we're all writing, right? Because we need to vocalize. We can't sit here and wish in one minute, okay? Let's get it done. We can all write letters and keep writing them until they do something about it. Because we can take this this isn't going to work this much longer. All right, now I'm going to speak, hopefully. I want to thank Sal and Joe who were there last night at the town council meeting, so was Michael, to listen to the presentation. Thank you very much for being there. Gladys had a great meeting tonight and has booked her next meeting for Wednesday, May 6th. Could everybody check their calendar, please?
It's only Ralph
No, David Matrina needs to check too. May 6th, Wednesday, it's a Wednesday, May 6th at 6 p.m. Alrighty? No, we want we're looking for full board participation.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So, no, I did not say that. You're supposed to be reading my mind?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll check my calendar. Yeah, I'm good.
I'll have my people call you.
Okay, thank you very much. I will send everyone's address that I promised you last week, but I didn't do. Alrighty, and Kathy's going to have a policy meeting soon?
I believe it's going to be before the next board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, health and wellness policy, there's some changes.
Okay.
So
Alright.
We don't make them, so,
Oh, yeah, you'll all be hearing when they make the date for the public hearing for the high school bond. it would be nice if we all attend, as many of us can attend to support it.
He said he was doing 2 things that night, I don't recall.
I'm sure it's been
We do not have the date yet. As soon as I have the date, I'll let you know.
The only date he threw out was something on the 18th, which is on our vacation, which is next week. I won't be here. I don't know if that was the night for the public hearing
And I don't know
or the
either,
budget. So we'll have to check, and with Debbie, we'll get you something if they've set a date or time. Can you check Jody? Then check with the city.
City things.
Yeah. What?
No, I'm
Sorry?
talking about stuff.
Attorney to yourself?
Probably the next school that's built.
That's out loud you're doing that.
Yes.
Just in case you wanted to know. All right, anybody else have anything they wanted to talk about?
Finance committee, please, Richard.
I think, what you'll do is to get a hold of Joe and work out a calendar, and come up with a date, and do that as soon as possible.
All right, if you want to get that to me first, and then I'll tell the new...
Would the finance committee members be available Monday night?
This coming Monday?
Right.
It's vacation.
I know.
Oh, Joe won't be able to be here.
You won't be
I'm
here.
just
Damn. Darn, sorry.
Dan works too.
Then the following Monday, maybe? All right, we'll put it together, Rich, we'll see. No?
All right, you want to shoot for the following Monday, because I'll contact
Yes.
Warren, okay? And say it's tentative. So if you superintendent people, can check your calendars too, please. Yes, go ahead.
Just as a reminder, the deadline for the applications for the enrollment in the Danbury Early College Opportunity, I think ends April 10th. So if you know anybody, or you want to spread the word, or publicize it, April 10th. Yep.
It's Friday.
I think so far, Sal, you said you had 25?
Well, as of yesterday, or the day before, is 25. There was a robocall went out to all the parents that indicated they're interested, and they're going back to the middle schools to talk to them. So they're recruiting and talking, trying to clarify the message and some of the maybe the confusion, graduation and stuff that was mentioned here. We did a TV show with it as well the other day. Put on, but right now it's 25. And if we don't get, I think 60 or 70, we're not going to be able to do it. And we can get out of the queues for it.
God bless.
So hopefully we'll make
So they're gonna extend that April 10th?
I'm sure they will.
Because, yeah,
They'll have to.
Who made the date first? That makes it-
Well, we did it just because there was such an interest to start doing our program
Okay.
for staffing.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Staffing's a new dirty word, so we're not talking about that. All right, anybody else have anything?
I just want to make a comment, and I've been on the board quite a few years, and I've listened to, the ECS funding, and also Dr. Say's testimony at the appropriation committee. I guess my question is, I'm in favor for writing a letter, but I guess maybe it might sound negative. What else could we do drastically besides change the people that's up in Hartford at the next election? Because, they have really, really been cutting Danbury for quite a few years. We have, to me, I don't think we have ever received our share that we were supposed to get as a school district. And we're talking about 15, 16 years. When is it going to change? What type of people that are sitting up here? Because we are losing our young children in the school system. We're putting more pressure on our staff to do certain things. The things are required by the state that the school district do, and there's no money. We keep moving around. We keep cutting people. Not having so many. There were so many people that was here when I first started. That, there was things that people did, and we moved our district forward. And now, everybody, is either the politicians, they don't want to do this, and everybody is like feeding one hand out of the other. I'm afraid to do this because, that's my buddy over there. And unfortunately, that buddy might be a Democrat or a Republican. It's playing with lives. That's the way I see it. And we have really cut here, our staff here in our school system. And I guess I'm ready to, what else could we do besides writing a letter? Because I can see, because I see letters when they come to my house, I throw them over in the bin, so you know, big bin.
You mean do what's illegal?
You said it.
I know what you're thinking. You know, Dave, you were at that meeting and they basically told you,
I know, I was at the meeting, I know who showed up, I know who didn't show up.
with the legislators.
The legislative breakfast, I know who made an effort, who listens, who at least engaged in conversation, and I know who didn't bother to show up. And it's ironic, but, I call it like it is. The ones who didn't show up are the ones we never get straight answers from. They show up in October for votes, and then they disappear for 18 months. I'm sorry, that's how it is. The ones who showed up are the ones who are out there fighting. And unfortunately, as big as Danbury is, they're just, once we get all, 8 or 9 of them, including Senator McLaughlin, once we get all 8 or 9 of them up there barking the same story as loud as they can, it's not gonna change.
But it's so unfair. It's so unfair. But this district has to go through this every year.
It's politics. What happened, the way they expect, Richie and I went to that breakfast in your town, and they were very succinct about it. What happens is, the money is placed where it is, all right? Things changed. Danbury is needier now than it was, but the other places have remained the same or dropped. But in order for us to get more money, you have to lose money. They have to take the money from you and put it over here into Danbury. Very unpopular thing to do. They're politicians. So it's easier for them, and this was said by one of them, to just go, we'll address this next year. We don't have time for this now. It'll come next year. What I was told by the lobbyist is that we have to make a lot of noise. We have to go to everything, be there, show them there are 11 of us, and we represent a very large district that needs the money. They have to do something. There's no magic bullet. There's nothing that we can do to make anybody do anything except be visible. And it will change their minds because we all vote and we control a large voting population ourselves. We are politicians. We're not just Board of Education members. We are elected put up by our parties and elected to this position. So we hold a certain amount of weight. We just have to be more visible, guys, than we actually are. Unfortunately, these people are doing as much as they possibly can, meaning our administrators. They're working as hard as they can. We have to get in people's faces that actually make the change. It's possible to do it. It's been done by other people. I've actually done it on a different level somewhere else. So I know that we can do it if we all stand together and keep working at it. It's not for somebody else to do. It's for us to do. Okay? Sorry.
Is there a legal issue, and I don't know all of this, for the school district or to send out a memo to parents saying if you feel this way, you may want to contact this person?
I believe that's part, yeah, I believe so. I think through your PTOs.
You can't tell them what to write,
No.
but if you, are we allowed to at least make them
she's right
aware
here.
of the problem and say if you feel that Danbury is being treated unfairly, you can do this? Can we do that?
I don't know if we can do that as the Board of Education as a whole, but we can go to, we all represent schools. We're at different PTO meetings. We can talk at the PTO meetings as Ralph Petrofessa, Eileen Albert's parent, board member. This is what's going on. We need you to do this. If everybody wrote letters, and you know how to, Ralph, you know how to do that, how to motivate people that way. I've seen you do it. Right, and everybody, no, not just right, but to get other people to do it. In other words, you talk about the people that you meet in the soccer fields and the people that have all the questions that they come to us about to see if we can fix, okay? We're powerless over half of what they want us to do. But here, in order for things to get better, we need you to do this. You need to start writing letters. We have to go to our legislators, and they have to fix this. And they
Is it legal for me as a Board of Ed member to say to a group of parents,
you should contact your, and I, legislative, can I do
Okay,
that?
I have legal counsel.
That's what I really need to know.
I think it's illegal.
Well,
Well, that's what she's asking.
I'm
Is it
asking,
legal?
am I gonna get in trouble?
the advocacy of a budget is different than the advocacy of a position, so
Okay, thank you.
they're different.
Okay, that's what I need to
You could be on shaky grounds on passing our budget.
Okay.
You know,
Oh,
but if you're calling them, saying, look, you're mistreating Danbury, call your rep, tell them your concern. I don't know why, but I'll tell you what happens, would be helpful. If you just took the delegation and each of you, pick one and make the call. Just make the call and talk to that person individually, rather than just sending a letter out to them. Because I think when they see a form, they do exactly that. But if you took the list and said, okay, this is I've got a relationship with this person, I'll make the call once a week and say, what's going on up there? Have you been able to promote our position? Give me a status. I think, you're in their face in a positive way, and you come back here and you talk about it. I talked to these reps last week, and I'm not hearing anything, and you make a vote with it.
and no, that's
You just gotta get it transparent.
And the reason I pass this out is because it gives there's something tactile for the people that don't read everything off the computer to refer to when you're writing letters. He's not saying not to write the letters because they need to see the letter and they need to get the phone call. All right, and now I just gave that to you because it's easier to look at that than it is to look it up on the computer.
Is there something, I think we might have asked before, I'm not sure, but is there something that, like, we can have, like, what it is, how it affects us, how it affects the parent, for, you know what I mean, to get it, where, okay, we don't get the money, we have to come up with money, we have to cut it, is there something?
But that's, let me, I think, it's not a knee-jerk reaction, I know you don't mean it, but if you call a parent and say, if you don't pass this, if you pass House Bill such and such, you know what, we may have to cut athletics. I wouldn't go down that
No,
road.
I'm not saying, what I'm saying is,
suggestion.
when I'm at a PTO meeting, and I'm there as a board member, and they ask, oh, what's going on, and, with the school, they ask me questions about the high school, they ask me stuff like that, giving them information. If I had information to say, listen, what's going on right now is this, and, we need parents to advocate for the school district, and, this is the funding, this is what it does. So the first is, you mentioned this to the average parent, they have no idea what it is. I mean,
Well, to that point then, Ralph, as I think you can reference from the mayor's budget address last night, that Danbury's losing $38 million per year in relative to other districts, other towns within the city of within the state of Connecticut that are of similar size and demographics.
right, but what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, any parent is concerned about what affects them. And you have to, in my opinion, I have to be specific about, okay, Bob, this is gonna affect you because we're losing money and your grandson isn't gonna, get the benefit. You know what I'm saying? I'm asking for a little.
It's easy, increase class sizes, right? We're continuing to grow class sizes, so therefore it's gonna have an effect as far as the child goes. Lack of staff, cutting, you've got art on a cart, where's the art room kind of thing. Non-essential employees are basically non-existent within the district. So that, all the support staff, that's your,
Right, that's the point. Then I can say, hey, write to or call your, whoever it is. But I have to explain it in a way where, they say, look, it's gonna affect.
Right, it has a direct effect on that.
Direct effect. We see it all the time. If you're gonna do something about the French club or about this, they're in here and then, it's direct effect. So
Well, two things, if we get you the list of legislators, maybe you could pick off someone, and then I'll work with Joe, and there's some stuff that's come from CAVE and CAPS that I can, we could get you some explicit information on, and then you can use
It's early in the budget process, but one thing that we may have to consider is pay for play. You know what, I'm sorry, it comes down to dollars and cents, and you know what, perhaps the athletic budget is gonna come under fire.
But you just saw the free and reduced, right?
Right.
There's there's no way we can do that.
I'm just making a point as far as an effect on a family. Whether it comes to that or not, but yeah, exactly.
No, I think, because I go to 3 different school PTO meetings, so.
Dr. Sines would be very interested in it. I think for me personally, I don't feel as articulate when it comes to discussing this. I will be honest with you. I know how I feel in my heart and in my gut, but I don't have all of the very specifics to, I feel, intelligently share. So I think, I mean, I know overall we're losing money. I get that. But if I want to encourage parents to help fight this fight, I would love to have a talking sheet, talking points.
I asked Joe, Joe said he will provide us with one,
this is
so-
who you specifically can call or write to. And that would be helpful. And I just want to know, is that legal? Can I?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes,
mean,
okay, then,
I think what
then I
that's
would love to do that.
but, you know, telling people that we're gonna do to the budget if it doesn't happen. I think you need-
No, I'm not going down that way.
Yeah, don't go
I'm
down.
not going
But I'll
there.
give you,
I'm
you know,
going
some
to, we
talking
need to fight
points.
to get more money for Danbury. These are my talking
Okay.
points. This is who you can call or write to.
And I've already asked Joe for that, and as far as who to
Okay.
do that, but before you go to bed tonight, it'll be on your email. Everybody's name, address, and.
No
Okay.
That would be very
Did you all put that over here on the?
But we
side?
need somebody to tell us who they're gonna pick, so that we have,
No, they all need, to. Everybody needs to contact as many people as they can.
oh, wait a minute.
As many
I'm not gonna say no, but
As many
I thought the
people.
idea was to take the delegation and people pick somebody to have a
Go
picture.
by district.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. Yeah, if you could do that.
This way, when I pick somebody.
do that, but I also think if I want to share with parents,
Yeah, the
I
talking
want
points,
to be able to do
you're
that.
gonna do both. I just
I can tell them, hey, you know, your delegate is A, B, and C, here's the information, you know, write them, email them, whatever.
Okay, everybody, could we just all talk one at a time? Thank you very much. Could I just say this one thing and then I'll stop talking? What I would like to do is take this time, and I know everybody thinks I thank everybody too much about it, but if you could just listen for a minute. I just want to thank the gentleman and the lady that, and people in the audience, this cabinet that worked so hard to accomplish what they accomplished with what they have to work with. And I'm not talking about us, I'm talking about the money, okay? Thank you all very, very much. You go way beyond, because the flip side of the story is all the things that are happening, all the good things that are happening with the restraints that they have to deal with, okay? Think about that. Alrighty.
I'm just going to say,
Oh, I'm sorry.
they're having their production right now, actually, it's probably just ended. Aladdin was their production. It's tonight, and unfortunately, we're here, unfortunately. But if you would like to go Friday night, they will do their second night of their show. It starts at 6:30, but it's at Westcon. It's at the Whitehall on White Street. It's that very first. It's called Whitehall. That's where they're doing the production, so if you want to go, it's Friday at 6:30. And the other thing I wanted to share is Christine Haddad from West Side, the media specialist, I believe. She did a presentation on the SBAC for parents that was very well received. And she sent me my daughter had a banquet that night, so I couldn't attend, but she sent me the PowerPoint, and it was very informative. So if you have any questions about SBAC and where you can go to even take the test, like take like a practice like SBAC test, that's available. And so if you just wanted to learn more about that, we have teachers who are giving up their time to present to parents, and I thanked her very much on our behalf for doing that.
Thank you for doing that. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we adjourn our meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're out of here. Kim? Thank you, Amy. No? Okay. You know? Yes? Really? Thank you, Amy.
Get some more kids.
You might actually be great.